And okay, so what we're doing is we're going to have a discussion about technology and how that can enable employee engagement. Before we get started, we just want to do a technology check. And for those of you that have your chat box up and running, I'm just wondering if you could help us make sure that you can hear us by typing something into the chat box. Good to go. I can hear you. That's right. Susan Byram, all good. Great. Okay. Um, Today, what we are doing, our social impact discussion series, is bringing together two super informed and really, really dynamic individuals. So if you were here for a couple of minutes before 11 o'clock, you might have got a sense of that already. But what we're wanting to do is to talk about how technology is really influencing CSR programs and employee engagement as part of that. So Angela Parker of Realized Worth and Lisa George of the United Way, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a sec. I just want to say that the discussion series is made possible through the group of companies, the LBG Canada group of companies. And for those of you that might not be familiar with LBG Canada, and you can see a group of their logos there, you can think corporate community investment, volunteering and giving programs. You can think about impact measurement on the community, on the business, employees, other stakeholders, companies that are trying to report to sustainability indices about how they're investing in the community and the impact that they're having. But mostly, LBG Canada is a group of professionals who are making decisions every day about how they're going to engage in the community. They really want to know about technology because they're looking for ways to increase their impact, enhance their impact, maybe think about things differently, which is what led to our conversation today. So my name's Stephanie Robertson, and I facilitate LBG Canada with my team. And I'm looking forward to this conversation, so I think we should just get to it. Lisa, I wonder if we could just start with you. Would you mind saying hello and telling us your role at the United Way, and so people can not only see your face but also hear your voice?
Oh, it'd be my pleasure. Yeah, my name is Lisa George, and Stephanie, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to speak with your members today. It's just a pleasure. I think we're going to have an awesome conversation. At United Way, I am the Director of Digital Business Development, and it's a role that's relatively new, and I have been with United Way since September.
Great. Okay, Ange, would you mind putting your voice to your face?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Parker. I'm the CEO of Realized Worth. Really happy to be here today, too.
Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to have a discussion. We're going to delve into a little bit of the technologies that Angela and Lisa represent, and then we're going to have a discussion. We're going to bring it together at the end, and hopefully involve you either through the chat box or through a verbal question. Both are welcome. So we're just going to see how the next couple minutes unfold, the next half an hour, 45 minutes unfold. So I actually want to hear, before we start, Lisa, maybe first from you, when you think about this real desire for companies to engage employees, what do you think the biggest challenge is to achieving those engagement goals?
Well, one of the things that I have noticed, right, in my many years in different organizations, yes, I get to be old today, is that there's in each generation there seems to be a little bit of a different focus area. And it's tough for corporations, it's tough for organizations to actually bring all of those groups together and rally around a cause that they can all believe in.
Great. Ange, what do you think? What's the biggest challenge that you see in terms of the work that you're doing in the US and around the world?
I automatically think of some of the individuals I know who struggle with just being motivated in this role. It can be a little hard to be part of purpose work when you expect to feel like it's meaningful every single day, and then you end up ordering a lot of t-shirts.
Yeah.
But as across the field, right now, it seems like one of the biggest challenges is the fact that other departments are working to achieve the same goals that you are. And you find out about it later. So D&I might have an event that's a corporate citizenship event, but you didn't coordinate on it because we're not quite connected on the fact that our goals are the same.
Okay, great. All right. And so, maybe technology can play a role in addressing some of those goals. And I think the thing that I find so interesting is that when I think about realized worth, and I should just say to the audience that we have some visuals to support our conversation, but the purpose of the visuals is not necessarily to be the focus of our conversation, and we will circulate them towards the end. But when I think about realized worth and what you do, and maybe what you want to share with us first off is really what realized worth is all about. But the last thing I think of you as is a technology company. And are you a technology company? Why? How are you using technology and what? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't claim to be a technology company. That sounds terrifying. Our partners are a technology company that own the platform that we partner with them on. So just to clarify, there are really smart tech people that work with us. But we're consultants. I mean, I kind of hate that term, but we do a ton of CSR and employee volunteering and employee engagement strategy consulting. And we focus on a methodology which we refer to as transformative volunteering, which is based on transformative learning theory. It's all mixed up in the academic world and the behavioral psychology world. We pull that all together to implement corporate volunteer programs with companies of all kinds. The technology piece is because we're a business, we need to be able to provide this in a way that both we and our clients can scale these programs. And if you don't have the technology to provide all over the world, it's really proving to be almost impossible to scale. So this is solving that one of many problems for us, and that's one of them.
And so when you think about the trends, and I know that you've shared some, but when you think about the things that are leading towards the need for a global approach, what are some of the trends that you actually see in volunteering?
Yeah, and you do see a couple of the trends on the slide in front of you. The first three on this first slide are probably really expected to most of the people on this calls. We know from CECP's Giving a Number report, that one, the new one just came out. There's a lot of designing for skills, as I have it listed on the slide there, but there's also an increase in the percentage of companies putting resources behind these programs, and all of the programs are considering how does each element of it contribute to the skills of employees. Impact measurement is huge. This is what SIMPACT does. Global collaboration, being able to connect with other companies through organizations like Impact 2030. But the second slide is a little more connected to how these trends led to us creating a technology platform. Right now, we are seeing that companies are willing to invest resources in the technology for the purpose of growing beyond their immediate resources. Again, with the resources we have, 1 or 2 people per CSR department and not a lot of promise of additional funding, we need technology to help us get beyond where we can on our own. I'm excited to hear more about Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud today and how it helps us do that. And then the growth and scale piece is huge, that we have to make it possible for volunteer champions to be managed as their own system so that they can take resources and knowledge and grow the program themselves and be empowered to do that. And that's really the only way that we're seeing that they're even interested in doing it, is if they feel like it's their program to grow. But again, we can't get there. We can't provide them those resources if we're trying to do it through one person at headquarters. And I'll just close this part with that final trend there, number 6, demonstrating broader influence, which speaks to that challenge that you asked about as we started out, Stephanie. Being able to connect with other departments and coordinate strategies to work together toward a shared mission is a huge trend, and I think technology is hugely important for enabling that too.
And so then if I'm a user and I go into the Voyager system, what kind of experience do I get? Like, what will Voyager actually do for me as I'm wanting to take on that responsibility of organizing something for that somebody else might like to participate in?
Yeah, well, I think you could think of it like any online course, or maybe even course/digital toolkit.
Yeah.
Or when I want to be able to do something myself, I have to go and learn it myself. I really don't want to go and ask someone to do it for me if it's something that I want to own again. So in this, you can go in, you know what the program is about, how to learn about the reasons and the purpose behind the program so that you can speak to it. You can be part of the voice that amplifies the message of the program, and all of the how-tos. How do I scope a project with a nonprofit? How do I find nonprofits? How do I use the tool like Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud that my company uses? How do I lead a volunteer event, recruit volunteers? What's the psychology that works for motivating people to volunteer? All of those how-tos, I can learn them all on one platform, and I can engage with the other people that are learning it too. So I can find out who the other volunteer champions or ambassadors are at my company. I can interact with them on the course, on discussion boards. I can do assignments, and maybe most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but hugely for growth and scale, the CSR practitioner, the leader of the program, can track all of this. And it is just such a release of so much of the pain that we see practitioners dealing with.
And so that's kind of interesting. Is Voyager then, is it an alternative to a Benevity or a Your Cause or a Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud or any kind of other type of technology? Is it like, how would it be? Would you choose one or the other, or do they work together? Like how?
Thank you for asking that, because that is really a point we have to clarify, that they are meant to be used in tandem, that we need workplace giving platforms. We need the Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud. We need the Benevity's Your Causes. We see them as partners in this field, but we have to teach volunteer ambassadors to teach other people to use the tool. The percentage user rate of these tools is still really low. And it's partly because it is a voluntary platform. Workplace giving platforms people have to be intrinsically motivated to use them. So we have to empower, deputize volunteer ambassadors to go and help each other get on these platforms and use them together. So in the training, in the Voyager training, customized for each company, we have the training included for how to go and use the platform, and then even to go and teach other people to use it as part of their role as a volunteer ambassador. So we ideally increase the usage rate of those platforms through volunteer ambassadors going through Voyager.
Okay. And so one of the slides which I just pulled up because I think it's really interesting, the way that you speak to it, is when you think about a new perspective, from program ultimately to agency, what does that actually mean in terms of how a volunteer is seeing themselves, and then seeing themselves as a volunteer with or with others? Can you just talk to me about what you mean by that, and then is that what Voyager helps people to discover, or?
Yes. Oh, great questions. Thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, this slide is really what I think all of us are about in this field when we take a step back from ordering t-shirts and saying no to lots of nonprofits and just think about why we got in this field in the first place, what our original why was, the thing that drove us to say, I want to do purpose work in companies or in nonprofit organizations. We knew that we were looking at a long-term change. Programs themselves are important, as you see there, the first point, from programs to movement. Of course, programmatic elements, dollars for doers, matching programs, specific partnerships with nonprofits. These are all important programs. But what we're doing together is driving toward a social movement, which means our outlook is 5-10 years down the road. It's not 2 months down the road. So the decisions we make now have to be for success down the road. And that means we do have to empower volunteer ambassadors, employees, with the agency to make a difference. If you skip down to the final bullet point there, I'll come back to the middle one. If they're just participating in the program and they're not given a sense of agency to own it, to learn everything, to apply it in a way that makes sense to their interests and their passions and lead others in growing and scaling the program, then we won't see the kind of difference, the widespread changes in attitudes and behaviors that we're looking for. We want to drive societal change, not just a few good events in our companies. Doing good is great, but I think all of us are in this field because it's really not quite good enough to just do one good event here and there. And then to come back to the middle point, from helping to belonging, we all have opportunities to do good work, to make a difference. If you call on your employees to have an impact through your programs, it's great, but they actually have a lot of opportunities in their lives to have an impact. But if you call them to belong, to be part of a group, to be part of people who understand, who come together and commit themselves together to driving that social change and having the agency to make a difference, then we see a greater and broader change first in ourselves and then in the people that we're working with. We belong then to the communities that we're working with and to each other because we're there to be made different as we make a difference.
Okay. So there's actually a couple of questions that I wanted to also ask you, but in the conversation that we've started, I actually can see that talking with Lisa and then with some of the people on the line would really enrich that 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 dialogue, I suppose. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch over to Lisa. For the people that are on the line, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second because there's a little bit more information from Realized Worth that we will send you in a follow-up, but I just don't want to make you dizzy, quite frankly, by so I'll be back in a second. But Lisa, I wanted starting to chat with you. This whole title, like digital transformation at the United Way, I mean, has that always been there? Like, is this a new thing? Has United Way always been investing digitally? Like, tell us a little bit about that, just as a new thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, thanks, Stephanie. Absolutely. It's a new thing. I mean, and that's not a surprise. You know, if you think back about United Way, that started 100 years ago with local business leaders pooling employee contributions together into various funds, such as community chests. They had a good intent, right? They were creating a sense of community and they were creating an economic safety net. But I'm certain way back then, there was no thought of anything digital. Not a digital marketplace. They didn't even understand that. But you fast forward now into current day, and United Way has definitely transformed in so many ways. And digital is a fundamental underpinning of what we do, about how our work is enabled. And the work itself is transformed in so many ways. Some people think that United Way is just what it was 100 years ago, that we're a funder or a fundraiser. And what we do is what Angela was speaking about and what people are so engaged in and want to become engaged in on a personal level is to create that lasting social change in community.
Well, and
right?
that's one of the things which I wanted to ask you because you're such a large agency. Like, how do you know really what's happening in the community because of the size that you are, not only in individual communities, but then also, in so many communities in North America and around the world? Like, how do you? Yeah.
No, it's a great question. If you look at each United Way in all of the different communities around the world, they each have a top of mind understanding of the social issues that are prevalent in their local area. So in our area here in Calgary, we fall under the themes of overcoming poverty and of helping kids be successful in creating strong communities. And, my local area is Calgary. I know it. I love it. It's been my home for 21 years. And there's some amazing changes that have happened in Calgary in the last 21 years for sure. And United Way is doing so much in each of the areas under those three pillars. And a lot of it is connecting people together. You can see from this slide here, that's what we're about. We want to improve lives. We want to mobilize the caring power of communities. And I wanted to speak to a specific, actually, in Calgary, a specific initiative that we have. It's called All In for Youth. It's a very interesting example of what happens when you can get a community to come together. So this was designed with high school kids in mind. It was launched in 2012, and it had a very modest preliminary goal of just looking at the issue of high school non-completion. And the preliminary goal was to get 3,000 positive adult youth connections happening. And then there was this aspirational goal to improve high school completion rates. Now, at the time, in Calgary, it was interesting. The rate of kids that did not complete high school was 1 in 4. Did not complete high school in time. 1 in 4. That is 25%. It's shocking, right? In a city that is so prosperous as what we are. And when you think about that, you've got to start giving your head a shake and say, what's happening? Why is this going on? And you look at how do you make that shift,
And
right?
so, can you tell us about how you would then bring people together and who those people would be? And
Yeah, absolutely. What we did was we were able to leverage the relationships that we have with a variety of organizations and bring together, it's like a village, bringing together a village. I mean, no one agency, no one government organization, no one corporation would have been able to do all this on their own. So what we've done now, 6 years later, we've got these 12, key community agencies. We've got the two Calgary school districts, as you see here. We brought together philanthropists, we brought together corporate partners, and over 2,000 volunteers were deployed to bring this together for an amazing move the needle social impact. Right now, 5 years later, the rate has dropped from 1 in 4 not completing high school in time to 1 in 5.
mm.
That's awesome. Brings it from 25% down to 20%. I mean, that is what United Way does.
And so, what we want to do is to link that is what United Way does to the opportunity to engage in this new digital world, right? And so, the one thing which I'd like to just get you to speak to, because when I was starting to learn a little bit more about the United Way, some of the statistics in terms of your global reach kind of blew my mind, So what I'd like you to do is just speak to that very briefly, and then we can talk about how the technology is going to help to leverage that local knowledge, but also this pre-existing network. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Yeah, United Way is strong. It's one of the most important on the ground infrastructure available for community change at scale, right? Like, look at the partners that we work with. I think important for the folks on this call might be we run annually 115,000 workplace campaigns, and that includes 47.5 million employees participating. And they're participating in a number of ways. They're participating through their donation of their funds, their own monies. They're participating through volunteering, like Angela has spoken about. They're participating in a lot of different ways, getting events together, trying to do local good wherever they are. What's interesting, if you look at what I had spoken about earlier for one of the challenges, if you look at the next generation that is coming up, the next generation is digital, right? And the way that they engage is so different from previous generations. In this generation, they're one of the most interesting and one of the most important, I think, that we should be aware of. They have the desire to do everything on a digital platform. I mean, let's face it, they grew up with it. They live and breathe it. It's in their DNA. I have two daughters that fall in this group, and um, I'm the person who might say, oh, some new feature has come out on my phone. I don't know what to do. And, my favorite 25-year-old will come up and say, do you need a young person to assist you?
Yeah. Well, and like thinking about the United Way's history, would you say that like what was the move into a digital environment a response or a strategy to make sure that this new generation didn't miss what the United Way had to offer? Like, was there, can you speak a little bit about that and why, what the philanthropy cloud?
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, this generation, they're the up and coming leaders, right? So their behaviors are what's driving and shaping our tomorrow. We definitely want to have them engaged with us in Philanthropy Cloud, and it's a perfect platform for them. It actually speaks to the way that they can um, look at their own interests and look at the things that they're passionate about and still combine that in with the efforts of their workplaces. I have a couple of slides that we can take a quick look at
Sure.
from TransAlta. So TransAlta is a global firm headquartered here in Calgary, and they were our first pilot with Philanthropy Cloud, which was amazing. So shout out to them. Thank you for joining us in this amazing journey. And the platform, it speaks for itself. It's really intuitive. It's very easy to use. And you can see right away, this is the home page. So an individual gets to see the very first thing, their impact. And that's what they want to see, right? They see their impact compared to where the corporation's impact is at a given moment in time. And that's important. That's something that individuals are looking for, to understand where their impact is contributing to the overall greater.
And so it's sort of a question for both of you is that, when companies sort of muse about, wanting to invest in technology in this type of area, is it a no-brainer? Like, is it like, oh yeah, we know we should do this. Technology is going to change the way that we're, implementing our CSR strategies and we're going to engage our employees. I mean, is it so obvious that are the benefits so obvious to doing it this way that the companies are just saying, oh yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Ange, is that your experience? And then Lisa, we'll come back to you because I know not only can you speak to the United Way piece, but you've been working in technology for a long time. Ange?
I know of like 2 companies that are like, we got it. We can use Excel sheets. It's no problem.
Right.
And then about 100 companies that say, as soon as we have the budget, this will solve all of our problems.
Right.
And the rest of them, yeah, I mean, because they really believe it's actually going to just solve their problems. And of course, it's part of solving, but then they have to figure out how to make it work the way it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to that because I think there's a really interesting piece around wishing that all the technology will solve our problems, but there are things that people can do to really move that forward. I'll come back to that though. I mean, Lisa, are you finding with the companies that you are starting to broach this way of engaging with United Way, is it just a no-brainer, or are you finding that there's certain things that they need to think about or barriers that need to be overcome in order for them to really move down the road?
No, I mean, similar to what Angela has experienced, we do still come across very large organizations that are managing quite a bit through paper and through Excel, and they are welcoming of technology, especially a technology that is as powerful as the ones that we're looking at now, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are very intuitive and user-friendly. That makes it easier for people to embrace the technology and want to use it.
And so does it really solve all your problems? I mean, does this approach, because like you can see the benefits, particularly because it's colorful and it's visually engaging and it's going to push opportunities for people who really want to have impact or companies that really want to mobilize. So you can see that the benefits are so obvious, but Ange, when you look at companies that you're working with from your consulting hat, what are the tweaks to the technology or the implementation strategies or observations that you've seen that what are the top 3 things that you want to get them to think about in order to really mobilize the technology in the way that it's intended to?
I think the general principle is that the same things are true in the world of CSR that are true everywhere else, that are true in human psychology, that are true in business. So we have to think about the things that work in the rest of the world, the things that work for just humans, not the things that should work. And I think we get stuck in thinking about what should work, and we put it out there, we presented it, it's beautiful. So doesn't everybody want to use it? But of course, the intrinsic motivation that goes along with Facebook and the fact that I don't even care if it's a clunky tool. Facebook was really clunky at first and everybody used it anyway because they were just dying to connect with each other. So maybe that's the motivation that we're speaking to, connecting with each other. But whatever it is, we have to speak to intrinsic motivation, number 1. Number 2, we have to integrate it into existing programs. Workplace giving technology can't exist outside of other employee engagement or employee volunteering CSR programs. It all goes together and they all achieve, again, the same benefits together. So to work with them separately or to work on separate teams and not coordinate strategies is just kind of a waste of energy. And then, I don't know, I don't have a third. I'd be curious what Lisa thinks.
Hmm.
Oh, well, I was going to say we're seeing the same thing. Technology by itself is never going to solve everything. It's all about the people and the processes and the technology, right? So you look at all of the example that we were talking about, Volun for Youth, that took a village. And when you look at a corporation, that still takes a village. There are still groups of people that have to be brought together. And it takes the brain power and the passion of those groups to move the needle on the social impact issues. It takes that. Technology is a wonderful place to connect, a great place where they can understand each other's causes and get those connections that they might not have otherwise had.
Mm.
You combine that with the people power, and then you've got something which is really strong.
And so we actually have a question in the chat box that I'll read out in a second. But Lisa, I wanted to ask, are there multiple U's across United Ways now? Like what stage of implementation is this, is the Philanthropy Cloud at? And
Oh, yeah, this is in play all across North America. So yeah, we launched with our pilots here in Calgary in this quarter, and across the rest of Canada and the States, there are many local United Ways that have embraced Philanthropy Cloud and are getting it out there to the workplaces.
Okay. Well, listen. Let me read Allison's question. It says, "Hi, Lisa. Love the cross-sectoral example of All In for Youth. Um, And does most of what United Way fund necessarily social services? Is it usually about poverty, homelessness? How do you manage the necessity of doing both, given that most of the work is going to support vital social services? So I think the question in summary is, how does the United Way balance maybe the interest that people might have to give to the community outside of the traditional areas that people associate the United Way with? Is there, yeah, will that be a possibility within Philanthropy Cloud, or do you really need to focus on, United Way designated priorities? Allison, I hope I got that right, but yeah.
It's a perfect question, and it comes up from time to time. And yes is I love when yes is the answer. Yes, Philanthropy Cloud can help with that. And within a corporation, within any organization, you have featured content like you see here, which would be some supplied by United Way, some content supplied by the corporation itself. But there's also the ability for all the registered charities to be viewed within Philanthropy Cloud. And if people are looking to find out how to direct for funds towards that, they can always do that on Philanthropy Cloud. And what they also can do is, if they don't want to necessarily focus on a specific one or agency or one path, we have impact funds, if you will, and impact funds take care of a broad spectrum of interests in a given specific area. And so when they read about those, they might find that that will actually meet their needs of being able to direct their funds, their hard-earned funds, towards something that they care about. So lots of choice. There's all kinds of personalized choice within Philanthropy Cloud.
Do you know, and this is, I hadn't really thought about this, but do you know, because I'm assuming that TransAlta has been a United Way partnership relationship for quite a long time. Do you know whether or not the results from the recent campaign that you had some screenshots of were different or more, or was there any kind of impact that they would have linked to the technology that you would know of? I know that it's hard to know the exact customer detail without a forewarning, which I apologize for.
It's all right, and they haven't completed, so tallies will be coming in, right? So it's a little premature to answer your question, but the conversation that we've had with the folks at TransAlta to date have been nothing but positive. They've given us some really good feedback too about what they would be looking for in future enhancements and things that would help them to interact with the platform more readily, more easily. And so we take all of those and we include them in to the folks at Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud to include on their list of considerations for their next releases.
Okay, great. Okay, so there's time for some questions. What we did initially was we put everyone on mute in order to just make sure that we were not having feedback issues or sound issues. But if you'd like to raise your hand, which is just say, hey, I've got a question in the chat box, you're welcome to either put your question in the chat box or to raise your hand, so to speak, and I'll take you off mute and you can engage with the whole group directly, whatever is your preference. Ange, who was your partner in the development of Voyageur while we're waiting for some questions to come?
They're called Next Thoughts. So now we're partnered with them in our shared work. They're an online. They mostly work with universities, so they're just an online course developer, and they also have a studio, so we can do course videos with them too.
Oh, that's great. And so what was the role of SAP? How did that come about?
SAP is a spectacular partner. They are Alexandra Vlogue over there. She's a thought leader in the sense that she's willing to try things and push the field forward. So they have Open SAP, which is a MOOC platform, massive open online course. And they said, what if we get Chris Jarvis, my partner, co-founder, to do a bunch of videos of him being Chris Jarvis. He's very entertaining if you haven't heard him before, and he's also a thought leader in this space. He's developed a lot of the work that Realize Worth provides. So they said, yeah, let's have Chris do a series of, 12 videos, and we'll put a course on OpenSAP, our first ever corporate social responsibility course. We'll invite all of SAP plus the whole world to take this course if they want to for free. So they funded the development of 12 videos of Chris talking about the different concepts. They're all pretty short, maybe 8 to 12 minutes each. They told us to do them shorter for most people, but Chris was entertaining enough. They let him do them longer. No kidding.
Yeah.
And they had the best response they've ever had publicly to those videos of people saying, thank you, finally. I just wanted to know how to do this stuff. So then that led us to provide a little bit more of a internally engaging platform that we could use and customize for any company.
Well, that's great. That's neat. Yeah. And so, Lisa, we had a question from Elizabeth who wanted to know a little bit about how the Philanthropy Cloud works differently from the previous technology that was available through the United Way, your giving programs.
Well, it's different in the sense of the presentation to the user. The processes, if you're already running that kind of a campaign with United Way, would be similar. We'd be looking at your employee file and uploading that, but the interesting and awesome part is so much of the power of setting everything up is back into the hands of the actual organization. So the administrator can do it. It is so easy. You can drop in your logo, you choose your colors, your Pantone colors, and the whole thing shifts to reflect the colors that meet with your particular organization. It is so user friendly, and so that is something which is very different from what you would have experienced before in terms of getting everything set up. It's tickety-boo, very slick to do for the setup from the administration part on the coordinator at the organization.
And so just to another question, if a company was interested in tracking their activities and importantly their employee interests in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals, could they set up that tracking system internally? Like is that a flag or a tick box that could be organized? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You can tag all of the content. So you can tag it according to the various causes. You can do some geolocation, so some scoping tagging. And yes, very important, you can track it and tag it to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Absolutely.
I'm going to tease you because we don't often use the word geolocations in our day-to-day environment, but it's a good one. We're going to use it today and a number of times and think of you. Because actually we have a number of participants from various geolocations across North America on this call. So good for you.
Yeah, okay, my technology background's coming out.
Yeah, that's good. No, it's all good. Good. All right. Well, are there any other, we don't have any other hands up as far as we just talked about the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, we got that one. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, what we're going to do as follow-up to this is, first of all, we'll circulate the detail that was provided within the visuals that Lisa and Angela shared. And within that, there's contact details in case you want to get in touch directly. Just before we say goodbye, I just want to double check that there are no other questions, because now, what is it? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Or
Yeah.
take your piece and offer it directly to Angela and Lisa. I'm sure they would be interested in receiving questions on a one-on-one. So, should we be looking out for? Are you sharing information through social media or whatever on the Salesforce Philanthropy Cloud's development, Lisa? Can people follow the development there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And I mean, I know that Realize Worth has a very active conversation going, so I'm sure that people will find you there, but we will definitely circulate information from today in case people want to ask you a few more things directly. Okay?
Sounds
Great.
good.
Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye, and Allison also wanted to know if we can send the links to the MOOCs. If that's available, we'll definitely
Absolutely. I'll send that to you. Stephanie, can you send that in the follow-up?
Yeah, we'll just embed it into the file and send it
Okay.
out so people can do it that way for sure.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Super.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Okay. Have a great day.
Okay.
Bye.
Right, see you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Bye. Oops. If I end